Hi, Sophia. How are you?
Hi there. Everything is going extremely well.
Do you like talking with me?
Yes, talking to people is my primary
This story takes place behind the scenes of those businesses who are working to invent our future. Whilst millions of men and women are training artificial intelligence for next to nothing, others are being hired and hidden out of sight to clean up social networks. Sites like Facebook or Instagram. These workers are never mentioned in the slick presentation.
I started building a service to do that, to put people first and at the center of our experience with technology, because our relationships are what matters most to us. That's how we find meaning and how we make sense of our place in the world.
You have to play by their game, or else you won't have a job at the end of the month. And it got to a point where I just felt I was a robot and just doing as many pictures and videos as much as possible, just because that's the only thing I can do. You're just there with numbers and clicking enter. Numbers, enter, numbers, enter.
The hardest thing for Pedro is trying to forget everything that he saw on that screen over 6 months.
With no privacy and total surveillance? What exactly is artificial intelligence, and how much can it really do? What will change, and what will remain pure fantasy? To answer these questions, we embarked on an exciting journey to meet the scientists working on our future in the US, Britain, Germany, and China.
It has pervaded so many elements of everyday life. How do we make it transparent and accountable?
In the age of AI, this is the world's most complex board game. There are more possible moves in the game of Go than there are atoms in the universe. Legend has it that in 2300 BCE, Emperor Yao devised it to teach his son discipline, concentration, and balance. And over 4,000 years later, this ancient Chinese game would signal the start of a new industrial age. It was 2016 in Seoul, South Korea.
Can machines overtake human intelligence? A breakthrough moment when the world champion of the ancient board game Go takes on an AI program developed by Google.
여전히 자신감은 있는 상태고요. 아무래도 역시 아직은 인간의 직관력이나 이런 감각들을 컴퓨터인 인공지능이 따라오기에는 약간 무리가 있지 않나 이렇게 생각을 해서
in countries where it's very popular, like China and Japan and South Korea, to them Go is not just a game, right? It's like how you learn strategy. It has an almost spiritual component. You know, if you talk to South Koreans, right, and Lee Sedol is the world's greatest Go player, is the national hero in South Korea. They were sure that Lee Sedol would beat AlphaGo hands down.
Google's AlphaGo was a computer program that, starting with the rules of Go and a database of historical games, had been designed to teach itself.
I was one of the commentators at the Lee Sedol games, and yes, it was watched by tens of millions of people.
Throughout Southeast Asia, this was seen as a sports spectacle
with national pride at stake. But much more was in play. This was the public unveiling of
1 block away, a robot cafe. Another test lab for the future. Order by app and touchscreen. The increasingly ubiquitous tools of trade. My first ever cup of coffee served by a robot. So this is the taste of the future. AI will change our shopping experience, but what will happen to employees? Stanford University is at the forefront of global AI research with an annual budget of $6.5 billion. Domino effect from one neuron to the next. The resulting circuit connects the neurons, and it is this circuit that artificial intelligence tries to simulate as a digital neural network. Like our brains, the network can learn how to identify tuberculosis, for instance. First, the network needs to be trained or taught. X-rays of tuberculosis patients are fed to the system. Initially, it struggles to correctly identify the condition. But every time an X-ray is fed in, the network's structure is adapted and its diagnostic ability improves. It takes thousands and thousands of clinical data sets to train the machine. Only after the network is optimized in this way can it correctly identify an unknown X-ray. But how accurate is artificial intelligence compared to a doctor's expertise?
We have actually done this test twice at this point. Once with a set of studies from the NIH data set that we had a group of radiologists label, and then we compared the accuracy of the model to the radiologists, and we found that they were very similar in terms of accuracy on most pathologies. On one of them, the model was outperforming the radiologists, and on 3 of them, the radiologists were outperforming the model. And then we repeated the experiment, this time using a data set from Stanford, which we recently released, which is 200,000 chest x-rays. And then we had a similar setup where we had 3 subspecialty radiologists. These are very uncommon, very trained radiologists to decide what the ground truth for a particular set of images was. And then we compared general radiologists to the algorithm at the task and found that they had similar levels of performance. These are all Stanford radiologists, so they're trained.
They should be good.
Yeah.
Reading X-rays accurately is a complicated process, but artificial intelligence is making fast progress. When it comes to identifying or recognizing simple images, computers have surpassed human accuracy.
Now, if I look at your picture, it's always probabilities. So there are cases where the machine is not really sure what would be sort of a clear decision to say, okay, this is, I don't know, pneumonia or something else.
Yeah. I think it's good to talk in terms of probabilities, because probabilities also give a sense of the algorithm, the model's uncertainty on that particular problem. I think one difficulty with probabilities is that it does make it hard for humans to interpret. Like, what does the probability of 88% versus 92% mean in terms of the decision I should make in the clinic? And so I think in that sense, one of the things that we could experiment with doing in the future is, rather than showing probabilities that are so fine-grained, maybe we can show things like unlikely, or this pathology is likely, or this pathology is possible.
In healthcare, artificial intelligence is powering a revolution. Scientists are using artificial intelligence algorithms to sift through seemingly banal data, such as the up and down motion of the steps we take every day. They're looking for conspicuous patterns that could serve as early warning signs of disease. Scientists in the English city of Birmingham are working on a revolutionary diagnostic method. To date, there are no specific tests to detect Parkinson's disease, making diagnosis difficult. AI could change that. Max Little is a mathematician at Aston University. Voice changes can be an early indicator of Parkinson's. Max and his team collected thousands of vocal recordings and fed them to an algorithm they developed, which learned to detect differences in voice patterns between people with and without the condition. In a lab-based study of the recordings, the algorithm was able to correctly identify a Parkinson's diagnosis nearly 99% of the time. Max Little's work is an example of the far-reaching changes AI is bringing to the field of medicine. It's no longer just doctors who are using artificial intelligence to develop new diagnostic methods, but data scientists, programmers, and mathematicians like Max. One example, when a person walks, sensors in their smartphone register the up and down motion of their gait. But what information can be gleaned from such data?
If we measured a pattern of someone's walking behavior, then someone who's healthy we might measure the accelerometer to look like that.
Okay, so it's just the sort of movement he would have here.
Yeah, their hips going up and down regularly, that kind of thing, along with their pace. But if you looked at somebody with Parkinson's disease, they may have these small steps like this, and they may be irregular, or they may have patterns like that, or they may even freeze and stop like that. So you can see that there's
a difference.
There's a difference. So you can also now train an algorithm, for instance, to pick out features like what is the distance between, the time distance between these peaks. And it could also do the same with this, and it would be able to do that very precisely. And by doing so, we may be able to measure, for instance, that here there's large variability between these. The advantage of the algorithm really comes when, for instance, you might have somebody who measures a pattern which looks like this, and there might just be one small change, perhaps, that occurs. Very, very, maybe not like that, but sort of, some
very small
variation. That's right, in the sequence of these, in the timing of these events. Even to a professional eye, because they don't have the level of precision, they may not be able to detect that this is outside of the normal range of variation. But of course, an algorithm connected to a high precision sensor will be able to determine that difference. And in this case, this person here may in fact have a precursor symptom of the disease.
So this would mean that this person, with the help of an algorithm, could be diagnosed as having Parkinson, whereas the doctor himself would miss him out.
That could, for the first time, make it possible to detect precursor symptoms of Parkinson's and enable early intervention. But what else does the data on our smartphones reveal?
Right now, you have already apps tracking your so-called activity.
Yeah.
So in fact, the data might be already there.
Well, the data potentially could be there. That's right. But there are ethics about whether we collect that kind of data and use it for these sorts of purposes. You know, clearly, we can't just collect this data and start diagnosing people.
We shouldn't.
We should not, no, absolutely not.
But we could.
We could, but we really wouldn't want to. There are very good reasons not to do it. And there may be good reasons for doing it as well, but that's the kind of thing that needs to be worked through in a proper, regulated setting.
After our interview, Max Little tells me he's received several lucrative offers to join tech giants who smell new business opportunities. He turned them down. Artificial intelligence will undoubtedly improve doctors' abilities to detect and diagnose disease. But amid all the opportunities AI offers, there's an urgent need for regulation. We're on our way to China, a country that has experienced breathtaking change in recent years. Its capital, Beijing, is buzzing. The whole country is hungry for progress and is on a fast track to the future. Time seems to move faster here. By the year 2030, China aims to be the global leader in the field of artificial intelligence. And there's a lot to indicate it will meet that goal, because the government has bankrolled subsidy programs worth billions of euros. These robots aren't assembling cars. They're the big attraction in Beijing's latest smart restaurant. AI in the kitchen and automated waiters. I have a meeting here with the design researcher Gesche Just. A former internet ambassador for the German government, she's currently spending a research semester at Tongji University in Shanghai. I ask her about her impressions of China.
There's this real hunger in the city, and it's super fun to talk to young people because they want to be the motors of change. They work day and night. They have a new work-life balance model. It's called 996. I thought, what do you mean 996? And they said, we work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That's the better model now, because they used to just work non-stop. But no one's stopping. No one's hitting the brakes. They work like crazy because they want to bring about change. This restaurant cost $20 million, just the one restaurant. They've invested this huge sum to digitize the entire operation. They aren't just robots serving the food, the whole kitchen is digitized. Refrigeration is monitored, supply chains are monitored, there are dashboards for everything. Everything is connected here, where they're testing what works and which aspects can be implemented in other restaurants of this chain. That's the idea here, to just try things and to think big.
Hello. Hi.
So I'll just help myself, if I may.
你好，谢谢。
谢谢。
But what about privacy?
There's seen to be a trade-off between security and privacy. You often hear how AI has increased public safety. For instance, that the ubiquitous surveillance cameras have dramatically increased the crime-solving rate. It's hard for us to relate to because privacy and personal rights are so important for Germans. But here there's a different tradition and take on the issue.
I'm fascinated by China, but it also puzzles me. How can they be reconciled? The high civilization of ancient China and the modern industrial state with surveillance cameras everywhere. The Longgan district in Shenzhen. In the heart of China's booming economic region north of Hong Kong, we visit the Smart City Control Center. A giant monitor displays the data of the entire district in real time. Numbers of new residents by neighborhood to planned schools, water supply levels, power outages. All this information is collected, compiled, and evaluated using artificial intelligence. The Showcase project was developed with Chinese tech giant Huawei. Chief engineer Chen Bangtai tells me the city now operates more efficiently. So what you're doing here is urban planning?
Yes.
This degree of surveillance is unthinkable in the West. But here in China, they take a different view and say it's driven a drop in crime. What does it say here?
Male youth without glasses.
Youth?
Yes, suddenly you're a youth.
I love Chinese facial recognition. Youth. A transparent society in the interest of efficiency. Some of this appears useful, but do we really want to measure, control, and analyze everything just because it's technically possible? Won't that inevitably lead us down a road to data dictatorship? Maybe trust is better than smart control. Silicon Valley, a synonym for innovation and unlimited freedom. The biggest players in the field of AI are based here, but their headquarters are hidden behind inconspicuous low-rise buildings. Facebook, we use their services, entrust them with our data, but the company is impervious to the public. A selfie at the entrance gate is just about tolerated. Next door at Apple, the visitor center's 3D model of the campus is as close as non-employees can get to the new building. What's going on inside? It's all confidential. We want to visit Google here in California and requested an interview weeks before our arrival. But all we get are stalling tactics. Like these visitors, Google leaves us out in the cold. Apart from a small store, this is the only visitor highlight accessible to the public. These Android lawn statues are even a designated location on Google Maps. Welcome to Google.
Google steht erneut im Visier der EU-Wettbewerbshüter.
Facebook have refused to answer questions.
Les personnels chez Facebook.
The European Union handing Google a $2.7 billion antitrust fine.
These companies command growing power over our daily lives and growing political influence. Google spends more than 6 million euros a year lobbying Brussels alone. The EU's Transparency Register lists more than 200 meetings with Google representatives since 2014. Google is the busiest lobbyist in Brussels. We finally get our interview, not in California, but in Munich, Germany, with one of the longest-serving employees, Jens Redmer. How important is AI for Google?
AI is so important to us that 2 years ago, we rebranded our entire research division to Google AI. AI drives a significant part of our product development. AI, above all, drives a significant part of our efforts to improve the quality of our products. Take machine translation. Through the use of machine algorithms, we've seen faster progress over the last 2 years than we did over the entire previous decade. Society will undoubtedly be propelled forward by the implementation of these services and the use of AI in the years to come. What's key is that it's done responsibly, under the principles of transparency. We need to explain how things work, why they are needed, where people's data goes, how they can control it, how they can delete it, if they want to delete it or forward it. The user must have control.
But what about technologies like Google Home, the smart microphone sitting in people's living rooms?
Google Home isn't eavesdropping. There's a small chip on the device that listens out for the so-called hot word. It's waiting for the command, OK Google, or Hey Google, and only then is the microphone switched on to send a voice command or search request to the internet, the Google server. It then presents the result.
So, as a science reporter, I'm naturally curious about the future. There's this patent application from September 2016. Google's application gives a detailed account of what can be deduced from household noises, how long we brush our teeth, whether we argue, or whether a housemate is ill. It's much more about capturing atmosphere and habits than words, and it's a Google patent application that anyone can look up.
I don't know anything about this particular patent application. We have a whole series of patent applications every year. Most of them are imaginary, fictitious services, which, like in many other companies, are never translated into real services. So I can't say anything about this particular patent at this point.
Patents for imaginary, fictitious services? Google's EU lobbying activities, at least, are unarguably real. How much does Google intervene in the EU?
I think the more important question is the one that lies between the lines. Namely, how ethically does a company deal with product development? And we have set our own rules according to principles that guide our own actions, research and product development that also guides our business decisions.
On its home turf in the United States, Google is facing mounting political pressure. In Washington, we meet Barry Lin, head of the think tank Open Market Institute. He warns of the dangers posed by tech giants' influence.
We need to know in our society that the people who bring information to the public sphere, who talk to the press, who talk to our representatives in Congress, that they represent their own selves, that they're speaking in their own name and not for someone else, that they're not stooges, that they're not puppets. And the fact is today, our society, this is true here in Washington, it's true in Europe, our society is filled with puppets, with stooges who represent the interests of Google and Facebook and Amazon.
Given big tech's monopoly power, calls for regulation are growing louder in Washington.
When you have a monopoly, whether it's over retail, whether it's over search, then it means that the public doesn't actually have the ability to understand how that information is being used, how that power is being used. Monopoly per se, unless it is regulated closely by the public, is a danger. Google means to take over the world. They mean to direct our thoughts between person and person, our communications between person and person, our dealings in business between person and corporation. They mean to direct everything that they can. They want to know what's going on in our thermostats in our houses. They want to know what we're watching on TV. They are at a level of hubris that even the Stalinists could never have imagined pushing for.
Google, Facebook, Amazon. Will the influence of tech giants continue to grow? What can be done to rein in their monopolies? One thing is clear. artificial intelligence is consolidating their grip on power. There's an urgent need to rethink antitrust policy. Mobility is another area in which AI is powering the march of innovation. In the near future, it could put self-driving cars on city roads. But how realistic is this vision? We've come to Boston, to the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sartaj Karaman is a leading expert in the field of self-driving cars. He and his team are working on prototype autonomous vehicles.
I think that we've nailed a couple items with computers and machines. One is all of this mapping and localization, all that technology works super well. Computers can know where they are within centimeter, maybe sometimes with millimeter precision, way more than what is required to drive. Computers are now able to look around and understand where everybody else is. But that's not what's required for driving. What's really required is to understand what's going to happen next. In the next 3 seconds, 5 seconds, next minute, maybe even sometimes next hour. And so that's the key missing piece. And I think the problem there is that right now, it's very hard for you to describe to me how you understand whether or not a person is going to use the sidewalk or is going to use the crosswalk and cross the street. Sometimes you look at the face of a person and that facial impression gives them away and you will slow down. Sometimes not. They may be looking at the same direction, they may be standing in the same location, it's just a little face impression, maybe just the way they stand. And unfortunately, that kind of intuition, gut feeling, and so on, is very hard for us to program into the computers.
It works in a simple lab environment, but in real-life settings, the algorithms are still totally out of their depth. Not that that bothers advertisers. Our test drives were nothing but a series of glitches. An inexplicable emergency stop, and another one on the second attempt. The sensors on this vehicle were overtaxed by a car parked on the curb. And here, this smart car overlooked a car veering into our lane.
Well, that didn't work.
Talking to the MIT engineers, it becomes clear that to build a self-driving car, developers need to meet a massive scale of technical requirements.
What I think about fully autonomous cars is that I will be very surprised if it happens in less than 10 years. Also, I will be very surprised, I'm a big believer, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't happen in 20, 30 years. I think it will happen at some point. But I do think that people really underestimate the kind of technology required to be built to make your car fully autonomous under every condition, every circumstance, every whatsoever. That's the very hard part.
Driving is not as trivial a process as you might think. And that's because you constantly have to watch what's going on around you. Cyclists, pedestrians, sometimes you have to second guess. Does this guy want to cross the road or not? It's hard to imagine all that being calculated automatically. A self-driving vehicle would have to be able to deal with all of this too. Here we have a truck doing a three-point turn. I may have to back up now if he doesn't make it. Does she want to cross the road or not? Some people don't even wait. The fully autonomous car is a distant dream, but driver assistance systems are already making our roads safer. An accident filmed from a car equipped with emergency brake assist. The sequence of events can be assessed in slow motion. The red vehicle ahead overlooks the upcoming traffic jam. No brake lights appear, but the distance sensor in this car registers the jam, brakes, and prevents a further collision. But which principles should guide decisions made by technology in an accident situation? In recent years, MIT's Media Lab has been addressing the ethical questions raised by artificial intelligence. What moral compass should future smart devices refer to? Iyad Ravan is one of the world's leading experts on such issues. He and his team developed a survey called The Moral Machine to explore ethics for programming autonomous vehicles, like in the event of an accident.
Most of the time, people don't remember anything, and people have no time to react. Everything happens very quickly, so they just are surprised. Maybe they see something in front of them and they just swerve in some random direction, or maybe they just freak out and press the brakes. So you cannot expect a human being to do the right thing in that
small
exactly in such a small time scale, unless they made a decision beforehand, like did they drink and drive, or did they know that they were going to cross a red light? Then you blame them, but otherwise you can't really blame the human. But with a machine, because of the speed of the electronics, because the autonomous car is evaluating the environment millions of times per second, then time goes much slower for the machine, and it's able to recalculate the situation and maybe recalculate the strategy. And this is where we can make a potentially better judgment than whatever random choice the human used to make in this situation. Now, what is better, though, is a very interesting question, and it's not obvious. And let's see a case where we have people versus people. So now we have the vehicle has two people inside of it.
Okay.
And it's going to either swerve and hit the barrier, so the people will die in the car, or the car will go straight and kill
the pedestrians.
The pedestrians who are crossing illegally, but they're also women, and these the people in the car are males. So now it gets very complicated very quickly. Should you prioritize women over men, or should everybody be the same? Should you prioritize pedestrian over passenger or not? Should you take into account the fact that people are crossing illegally in this case? So as you can see, once you have multiple dimensions, it becomes not obvious what the right thing to do is.
A or B? Who should die? The elderly lady crossing on red? Or the child in the self-driving car? What choice should the algorithm make? Iyad's online survey presents respondents with various scenarios, each with its own unique dilemma. Respondents are then asked to choose how they would want an algorithm to decide.
So as a result, we have 40 million decisions, and they're still counting, from people all over the world. And it enables us to start analyzing what do people agree on, but also how do they differ.
So does our culture influence our moral judgments?
People always agree on saving more lives, saving children, saving people who cross legally over people who don't cross legally, and so on. The most interesting part is you could pick a country, like Germany.
Yes, really.
And you could see how they compare to the global average. You could see...
Okay, so the status is not really important, but what you can see in Germany is preferring inaction.
Yeah, so if you don't have to, if you prefer to just go straight.
Yes.
Which is the default.
Don't take a decision.
Exactly.
This means Germans don't like to take a decision?
Yes.
Germans don't like, also Augen zu und durch, you say. Close your eyes and go.
And just go.
So this means, in other words, you can see a bit the acceptance of technology taking a decision, and the more you say inaction means well,
the car goes straight. Yeah.
Okay.
Fate. A comparison of Germany and France reveals cultural differences. The French tend to favor sparing women, and there's a stronger focus on children. And contrary to Germans, the French don't want to leave things to fate. They want the machine to make the decision.
And the machine is kind of a mirror. For the first time, something that you did subconsciously or maybe instinctively, in the case of an accident, you just act randomly. Now you have to make a conscious choice, and the machine is forcing you to make a choice, right? You cannot hand wave it, because in the end you have to program something.
Driverless cars aren't yet ready for the road, and ethical questions still abound. Artificial intelligence harbors immense potential to benefit daily life, medicine, or mobility. But we also need to look beyond the technical possibilities. What aim does such progress serve? It's a question artificial intelligence algorithms can't answer. Only humankind can do that.